that are attached to each grammar, that if a grammar follows a particular set of rules, I will call that grammar a regular grammar, and it follows a particular set of rules, I will call that grammar a context free grammar. So we are standing, because we are standing at our third module, and then if you look at the module that is given in the syllabus, it looks a very small module, but actually it is a very big one, because if you're seeing that there are normal forms like Chomsky normal form and Grebatch normal forms. Okay, so to understand that normal form, there are also another topics that are not included in the syllabus, but we have to discuss it earlier so that we can understand that what is exactly a Chomsky normal form and what is exactly a Grebatch normal form. Okay, so I think we have very less amount of time to cover these kinds of topics. So I will also be taking a little bit of extra classes. If I'm not able to cover it, I have to take extra classes. Okay, so if you want it to be covered in a complete sense, then I will take extra classes. If you do not want it, then let me know. I will again only do that what is written in the syllabus. Okay, so I think it will be preferred to you if you understand all the things in TOC, because in till now we have approached the TOC subject in a complete way, and now you are able to solve various competitive exam questions very easily. If you are seeing your progress also in the test also, I think the test is a very high level test, and that contains a very many gate and previous year gate and many previous year ISRO questions. Okay, so most of you are able to solve it. So I think if we follow a complete approach, that will be very beneficial for us. And just let me know which who is your class representative, or what you called a group representative, I think. So I can discuss the extra class details with your class representative. Okay, so after the lecture, please class representative contact me on my email or on Microsoft, on the chat box of Microsoft. Okay, so okay, so we will start with, let me just share the screen. Okay, so let me just start the recording. I think I've started it. Okay, so recording is already started. Screen is shared. Okay, so if you remember what exactly is a Chomsky hierarchy, I have made a diagram. In that there are general generators. In that one there are different languages, and in that one there are your acceptors. Okay, so if I again make the diagram in context of it, so mostly it is called as a regular language, and then after that there is your context free language, and after that there is your context sensitive language, and in the end you will got your unrestricted language, or what you call most preferably called a recursive language. Okay, so I will tell you all about it, don't worry about that part. Okay, so now this thing is called a Chomsky hierarchies. Okay, if you arrange the languages or grammars or acceptors in this way, that thing particularly it is employed, and it is called as a Chomsky hierarchy. Okay, so in this one particularly, this RL is your type 3 language. Keep that in mind. It is your type 3, not type 0. It is type 3. and if you go outward, it will be type 2, then it is type 1, and then it is type 0. Keep that in mind. Do not think that the last one is the type 3, because most of you will make a mistake. Most of you will think that this is 3, 2, 1, but keep in mind it is 3, 2, 1, and 0. Okay, so type 0 grammar, type 0 languages are the languages that are accepted by your Turing machine. Okay, keep that in mind. It means Turing machine can accept all the languages that is below it. Keep that in mind. Okay, so now if I'm talking about type 3 languages, okay, type 3 languages, grammars or something. So type 3 is your regular grammar. I'm talking only in the context of regular grammars. Okay. Now, how can you identify that a particular grammar is a regular one? So the definition is given by this, that if a production like this is given, A tends to alpha, and then there is a beta, a B, sorry for that, B, and then there is a beta. Okay, so keep that in mind. If I'm using alpha, beta, they are your terminal symbols, and your B is your non-terminal symbol. Okay, so if any grammar is written in that form, you can directly say that this particular grammar is a regular grammar. Okay, so in this there is also it is also given by this, that you can say that alpha and beta is your terminal, and more specifically you can also say that this alpha beta belongs to a T star. Okay, T star means any number of times a alpha 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 can come. Okay, I will tell you about it, don't worry about it. And now the beta, now the this B is a non-terminal, and it is denoting only for one non-terminal. Okay, so okay, I'll tell you, give an example like that. Suppose this is the example of this one. That example of this regular grammar will be small a. Now small a is your terminal symbol, so followed by a big what do you call, what big, something big like a B. Okay, so this is B, and then there is another symbol like a small b a. Okay, so T star means any number of terminals can be used here. Alpha beta can belong to any number of terminals. There is no compulsion, it should always be one. But for beta, but for this big B, this non-terminal, it should only be one symbol. Okay, keep that in mind, it should always be one symbol. Okay, so if you write it like this, a followed by a b b, and then a b a. Now this is not your regular grammar. Okay, so this is not your regular grammar. So regular grammar is given by this set. Okay, so don't worry about it. I will put this definition also in PPT. It is already written. Don't worry about it. I will open that PPT. First, I will just give you a little bit of examples of it, and then now there are two types of it. Now the regular grammar is also divided in two parts. First part is your right linear grammar. I will tell you that it's very easy to understand. Right linear grammar, and the second one is your left linear grammar. Okay, so it can be anything. It can be right linear, it can be left linear, but the difference is just a minute. In these two there is a little bit of a difference. Suppose I'll give you example. Okay, so I'll call this was as RLG and this one as LLG. Okay, so now the example of RLG, why it's called a right linear grammar. So it will something, it will be like that. Okay, A tends to, it will follow all the rules here. So it will look like this. Now this is an example of a right linear grammar. So this is more specifically example of right linear grammar. Why? So see, okay, so now this A, then B, then there is a single A. Now B is followed by a AB, a small bb, a single A or a single B. Okay, so if you're seeing all of the production that is present is following that rule. Okay, so A is followed by a one terminal, that is fine, and it is slash a one terminal. It can also be A tends to one A tends to a terminal. That is also correct. Now see this B's production. B production is also in the form of alpha beta. Alpha is your terminal and that beta B is your non-terminal. Okay, so keep that in mind. Alpha and beta terms are terminal in nature, and anything that is written in capital, that is non-terminal in nature. Okay, so now if you're seeing this A, it is following the production. A tends to B. Yeah, that is fine. And again, it is following the same format, alpha beta.
Excuse me, sir.
Can
you
just wait for a minute? I think someone is
Sir, someone is kicking me again and again. Can you make everyone attendee?
Yeah, I am looking at that. Okay, just wait a minute. Okay, so what is the point of doing that? If you're not interested in attending the lecture, just sit as it is. I'm not saying that you listen to all of the lecture. Okay, don't mute others. I don't think that is a appropriate way to attend a lecture or attend a meeting. Okay, now if you're seeing a right linear grammar, it will follow the same format that is already discussed here. A tends to alpha followed by a terminal followed by a non-terminal. Keep that in mind. Non-terminal can only be a one symbol. Okay, so it is always be a one symbol. It is not more than that. Okay, so if you broke this production, it can also be written as A tends to if I just replace this as terminal followed by a non-terminal, and that terminal is only one, but this terminal set can be a T star. Okay, so any number of terminals can come, but this non-terminal can only come only one time. Okay, so it can also be written like this, or it can also be written as terminal followed by a non-terminal, and you can write a different production like A tends to a terminal also. Okay, so that depends upon you. Okay, if I want to change this, I can also write this as one as alpha tends to A star followed by a non-terminal, that is your capital B, and then this is your P star. Okay, so it can also be written like this. Okay, so now this is your right linear grammar. Why it is calling a right linear grammar? Because at the most right hand side are your terminal. Okay, so it is based on the position of your terminal, because it is based on the position of your non-terminal. Okay, so there is only one non-terminal in the production. If that non-terminal is placed on the extreme right hand side, then I will call this grammar as a right linear grammar. Okay, so this is the definition of a right linear grammar more specifically. Now, if you want to see a left linear grammar, it is one and the same thing. Left linear grammar, if I want to give a definition of it, it will look like this. A tends to, if I take a B and then alpha becomes on the right hand side, and then your beta. Okay, so this is the definition of a right linear grammar, and more specifically, if I call this one as, this is the definition of right linear grammar, and this is the definition of left linear grammar. Okay, so now what do you do? If I take an example of it, again the same thing, alpha and beta is belonging to terminal star, and B is only a one non-terminal. Keep in mind, B is only a one non-terminal. Okay, so now the production can be, example can be seen like this. Just take the same example, just change the variables here. Okay, so it will be A tends to a B, A, and then there is a, and then the B can be written as B, A, followed by a B, B, followed by a, followed by a B. Okay, so it can be written like this. This is specifically because if you're seeing, the non-terminal is on the left hand side, extreme left hand side. Though this is your left hand side, this is your left hand side, this is also your left hand side. Okay, so all the rules are followed. Okay, so rules can be written if you're seeing the rules. So if I write the rules of this one, it will be more clean. In the more clean version, it can be A tends to alpha, then a capital B, and then there is a beta. Either in mind, this B and beta is different. Beta, alpha and beta is used to denote your terminals, and B is your one non-terminal symbol. Okay, so this is your right linear grammar, and this is your left linear grammar. Keep that in mind. In a production, it can either be right linear, it can either be left linear, but it cannot be both. Okay, so suppose if you write a production like this, A tends to a BA, and then it tends to A, and in that the B is tending to AB, and then some terminal B. Okay, so if you're seeing this particular thing is your left linear grammar, this particular thing is your right linear grammar. Okay, so this particular thing is not your type 3 grammar. Keep that in mind. This is not termed as a regular grammar. So it can either be completely or fully left linear grammar, or it can either be completely or fully right linear grammar, but it cannot be like that. Okay, so some production rules are left linear and some production rules are right linear. So you cannot call this this one as a type 3 grammar. Okay, so it is a very easy to understand, because by using this production you can also design the automata. Okay, so how can you design an automata? You just take a grammar and derive the strings and see what exactly is the language, and from that language you can also derive a particular automata. Okay, but from an automata you can also write a language. From an automata you can also,
just as soon as you tell me everything you know about Katerina.
okay, I think someone is watching a series, so little bit if you are watching the series, just mute your device. Okay, so now
Trial version. Trial version. Trial version.
so one by one I have to mute all of you. So please maintain a little bit of discipline in the class if you want to learn. If you do not want to learn, I can skip ahead. There is no need to discuss all of these things. I'm discussing it that you will understand. If you do not want it, I can move it to the next one. Okay, so now there is the context-free grammar. That is also called your type 2 grammar, that is your context-free. Okay, so how this context-free grammar can be understood? So this is again denoted by the same thing. A tends to alpha, and that A belongs to your, if you understand that if in the previous one also, if you're seeing in this one that this is your A also, so I forgot to write this A. So A is your non-terminal, Also, the bigger things are your non-terminal. Keep that in mind. B is your non-terminal and A is also your non-terminal. So it is also a one symbol on the left hand side. Okay, on the left hand side, this is also one symbol. Keep that in mind. This A is tending to something, but this is not a regular grammar. Okay, so if you write AB tends to something, so in the left hand side, it will always be one symbol. In the similar way, if you are this is a
Sir.
context grammar. Yes.
So can you scroll upward?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Here, sir. Sir, here alpha and beta can be T star means can be repetitive of terminal nodes, right, sir?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sir, all the terminal nodes should be of same node, or like only of A or only of B, or can be combination of small a, small b, like that also.
It can be anything. It is just belonging to T star. It can be anything. It can also be like if A tends to A, small b, and then there is one terminal. Okay, it is also context. This is also a regular one. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay, now in this, the only difference here is the A tends to, you know that this is a left hand side symbol and it is tending to your non-terminal one. So this is non-terminal. Now this alpha is a union of, it can either be terminal or it can either be non-terminal. Okay, so V, if you remember, V is your non-terminal symbol from the grammar. So T is your terminal symbol, and it can be any number of times. Okay, so what it means that if A tends to something, it can in any order, this alpha belongs to a set of terminals and non-terminals. Okay, so something like A, this is your context free grammar. Something like A followed by greater than B, this is your context free grammar, because it is following the same rule that it contains terminal or non-terminal in any number of ways. So this tends to something like A, B, B, B. So this is also a context free grammar. Something like this one, A, B, B, B. This is also a context free grammar. It is just saying there is no compulsion now on the right hand side. If you're seeing, right hand side has no compulsion that it should contain only one variable. Okay, so whenever you are approaching in terms of grammar, so if you're seeing in type 1, there are more rules. Okay, so there are more rules on the right hand side. If you're seeing, more rules mean that in the right hand side there should be only one non-terminal. Okay, so now if you're going further ahead, type 2, the rules are less. Now if you're seeing, there is less rule because it does not say about anything about terminal. The terminal can be repeated any number of times. Okay, so non-terminal as well as terminals can be repeated any number of times. In the way you approach type sorry, it's a type 3. So in the way, if you approach type 1, the number of rules will further be loosened. Okay, so now only if you're seeing there is a compulsion on the left hand side that the symbol of left hand side will be only one non-terminal. In the same way, in type 2, if you're seeing, there is also a compulsion that the left hand side symbol is also one non-terminal. Okay, so that compulsion is there. But on the right hand side, if you're seeing in the context free grammar, some rules are relieved. Okay, so in the similar way, if you go towards the type 3, so this left hand rule will also be loosened, that any number of I will tell you about it, but we are standing at context free here, so I don't want to talk about that. Okay, so now if you also see the definition of a context free grammar. Okay, so it is given like this one in formal language. Context free grammar is a formal language. In every production of the rule, A tends to alpha. Okay, so now alpha is a single non-terminal symbol. A is a single non-terminal symbol, so it is talking about the left hand side. So there is a compulsion on the left hand side. It should always be one terminal symbol, and alpha is a string of terminals. Okay, so alpha is a string of terminals and or. Okay, so it is just saying and or means that it can be a terminal union non-terminal union terminal, and it can repeat any number of times. Okay, so alpha can also be empty because there is a star written here, so it can be anything. So that is why I've given a different different symbols to understand this one, that what is written in the definition here. Okay, so that is it means that in the right hand side, terminal and non-terminal can come in any direction, in any way, or alpha and epsilon is also included in that one. Okay, so there is now only one compulsion, that the left hand side will always contain one non-terminal symbol. Okay, keep that in mind. Non-terminal means a bigger one, terminal means a smaller letter. Okay, so now before jumping into if there are some rules here that I want to discuss about. So there are something that your context-free grammar. So this context-free grammar is mostly used in your C language. Okay, the C language and compiler is all the compiler is written in this context-free grammar. Okay, so if you have done compiler construction, there are many things that you will come to know about, that there is something called ambiguous grammar and there is something called unambiguous grammar. So how can you convert ambiguous grammar into an unambiguous grammar? So these are all the things that is written and defined in this by using a context-free grammar. Okay, so that is one of the most important grammar in computer science. Keep that in mind, that your C language is written in context-free grammar. So all the rules you see, that you are seeing the rules like 9 plus 6 plus 2. So if you know that your plus is right left associative, so first this one is solved, then this one is solved. That is also written in this particular context-free grammar in the C language. Okay, so if you are designing a new language, you do not design it from scratch. Okay, so already the C languages, that is why the C language is very popular, because of the rules that are already defined in context-free grammar. So what they do, they take the 4 phases. Every language is taking 4 phases. First 4 phases of C languages, in which all the rules and syntax and semantics are, all the rules have been defined here, and they are only changing the last 2 phases of any compiler. Okay, so if you see Java compiler is also based on the same thing with a little bit of modification in the last two phases. Okay, so that is the advantage of this context-free grammar. It has written a context-free grammar. If somebody has employed a context-free grammar in writing a C compiler, there is no need to start it from scratch. Okay, so all of you can use. There is a tool called Lance. Okay, so I think there is a compiler construction tool called Lance. You can also use it to write your own compiler. So that is only if you're changing the last 2 phases, you can give your own language to computer science. That can also help you. Okay, now before starting with the next topic, there is a little bit of a problem that this is the, if you remember, we have done some properties like decidable properties and some closure properties of context of regular languages. In the similar way, the context-free one will follow the same property, and there is a very interesting property in that, and that is a particular string. That is a particular string is belonging to a particular grammar. Okay, so now. Now understand this very carefully, because it is a little bit of a confusing concept here. Okay, so before telling you why I use specific procedures, I have to tell you that what is the problem that arised, and that is why I'm moving to the ahead your topic, that is your elimination removal procedure, and that procedure is basically a removal of your unit production, removal of your epsilon productions. Okay, so that based on these things. Okay, so before continuing with this one, I just tell you why there is a need to remove these kinds of things. Okay, so now there is a particular problem that is in the decidable property, that a particular string that is present in a language is that a particular string, this is your string, is belong to the language of a grammar. Okay, so if this is the problem here, so how will you approach this problem? So it can be you will be thinking that if the string is of one length only, if you are saying that the string is of one length, so you will what you do in the step 1, you will deduce all the production that produce a terminal after one production rule. Okay, so it in that stops and finishes your string at, because if I want to know that a particular string that is of one length is belonging to a particular grammar, that is particular grammar, I will take out that productions that produces a one length string. Okay, so I will, if there is a grammar, I will take a grammar. It can be a lengthy grammar, it can be a small grammar, but I will take that grammar and I will derive all the strings that is derivable, that is producing only one length strings or one length terminal, because I will stop only if I get a terminal here. I cannot stop if I got a non-terminal. I will get only those strings which are stopping at a terminal. Okay, so if it is a two length string, suppose it is a two length string, so I what I'll do, I will take all the productions of the grammar that at two steps they are producing some kind of a terminal symbol. Okay, suppose the production symbol can be like a b. So first one, it is a starting symbol. After that, in place of a, I am putting another b. Okay, so it means that in two steps, because any production that is in two steps can produce this particular string. I will list all the production rules. Okay, in the similar way, this is the problem. That what is the problem here, that a particular string is belonging to a particular language. Okay, so what I do, so if I will start with the one step. Okay, so if there is a particular string, it can be anything. I will list all the production that in one step is giving me a terminal. Okay, so it is, I am giving the example of only one string here, but in a grammar, when all the productions that are resulting in a terminal, I will stop it there and I will check that this particular string is belonging to W. If it is belonging to W, I will stop and I will find the result. But it is not, then I will produce all the production that will result in a terminal string in two steps. Okay, so in the similar way, if I still not find it, I will go to the third, three steps in all the production that after, suppose this is a production like A, B, B, and then there is a for this B, I will put a B. Okay, so in three steps. Okay, so I will list all the productions. I will list all the production that in three steps will produce a terminal. Okay, so now I will check it if this string is belonging to this string. If it is belonging to this string, I will stop unless I will go ahead again and again. Okay, so it will, if I say, if there are k steps, for k steps, I will be, if the string is belonging to a particular length, and from that grammar, this particular string is taken. Okay, so if this is the string like ABA, and by listing all the production, I will find that at two or three steps, I will find this particular terminal, and I will say that this particular string is belonging to the language. Seems a little bit it's a very easy problem that you can by doing it like this. Okay, so what is the problem here, that first of all, you have to know that what exactly is the length of this string. Okay, so if the particular string is present in the language or in the grammar, there is 100% chance that you will stop at a particular point. Okay, so because it is belonging to the same because the language is belonging to the same grammar, there is a chance that it will present in the same grammar. So at some point of time, it will be a very big amount of time, but at some amount of time you will definitely stop if it is present. Okay, so if you go by 3 step, 4 step, 5 step, 6 step, 7 step, so that is a very big that is a very good solution if you find it. But now the problem arises when a particular string does not belong to a grammar. Okay, so now what will happen? So you will if you are listing the steps here, so it will be a kind of a very it will take a very high amount of time to do this. Okay, so it will be as high if you're thinking that it will be like an infinite loop. If you are stuck in an infinite loop, why you're stuck in an infinite loop? Because if it is not present in the grammar, it will take a whole lot of time. Okay, so it will take a whole lot of time how to say that a particular grammar, because you have to take all the strings that are present in the grammar. Okay, so it will take a lot of time. So that is why I'm calling it, it will like stuck in an infinite loop. It will seem like it will stuck in an infinite loop. Okay, so now how to solve this one is to know that a particular length of the string. If you know that the length of the string, suppose now the problem arises when it is does not belongs to a particular grammar. So a particular string does not belong to a particular grammar, then there is a problem that it will take a whole lot of time. So what I'll do, I will say, if I know the length of the string, that is the solution. Okay, so it provides a solution to me. How? If I know the length of the string, I will say that uh, I will derive all the things that in one step it is producing terminal, second step it is producing terminal, third step it is producing some terminals in 3 steps. Okay, so after if the length of this particular string is suppose 1, so I will list all the strings that are producing a one length string in one step. Okay, so in one step, suppose this as tends to A tends to A, starting symbols, all the starting symbols like S tends to A, S tends to B here, as tends to C here. I will all list all the production that is producing in one step, only the terminals here. Okay, so in this way, I will get to know about if it is not present in this one step. Now the length of the string, now that the second 2 length string or the 3 steps are producing more length string, like it will produce 2 length string, all the production that are producing a 2 length string in 2 steps. Okay, all the production that are producing 3 length strings in 3 steps. If I follow that approach, now I will know that if it is not listed in a one step and one length string, I will just say that it is not present in that one. So that is a good solution. Okay, but now what exactly is the problem with that? So if in a grammar there are some productions like A tends to alpha, epsilon. Okay, so now what happens in that? The if you are thinking about that you are deriving some strings. Okay, so if you reach here, so if this is a third length, 3 steps and 3 length string. Okay, so you want to derive 3 length strings in 3 steps. Now you will be thinking that in 2 steps I will get 2 length string, in 3 length I will get 3 or 4 or 5 some steps link, but I will not be able to get a more length string than this one. So I can say that it is possible that the particular string does not lie in the language. But what happen if epsilon production is present in that? So the length of the string can also be decreased. So how? Suppose some production is given like A tends to a BC. Suppose this in 2 length string, and in that C is tending to epsilon. Okay, so now if you're seeing now this production is reduced to only 1 length, and that B can be a here. So in that way, it is also present in 3 steps. Okay, so if you're seeing in 3 steps and a 1 length string, in 3 steps you are able to get a 1 length string. So that is why this epsilon productions are creating a problem. I do not want these epsilon production in my grammars when I am trying to say that a particular string is belonging to a particular a particular grammar. So that why that we want these null production or these production. I do not want these production in context, in my context free grammar. In the similar way, there are some production that does not contribute to anything. So they are just wasting my steps, something like this. If this is a grammar like A tends to B tends to C tends to D. If you're saying that in now how my steps are wasted, A tends to B, and then B is tending to C, and then C is tending to D, and then D is tending to A. Okay, so if you are saying in 1, 2, 3, and 4 steps, and in the 4th step I got the terminal. In 4 steps I got a one length string. So that is also I do not want. I want to derive that in 1 step I got 1 length string, in 2 step I got 2 length string, in 3 step I got 3 length string. Okay, so now these are called your unit productions. Okay, so I also don't want this unit production as well as this null productions. Okay, so null production that A tends to epsilon, and unit production is that A tends to a single unit or single non-terminal. Okay, so these productions are creating a problem in creating an algorithm for a particular strings belong to a particular language. Okay, so I do not want these null productions and these unit productions. So that is why we try to eliminate the epsilon production and as well as your unit production in yes.
So why we don't want the unit production?
Hello.
Sir, please explain why we don't want unit production again.
Okay, so now if you're saying that what is the problem, just start with the beginning, that what is the problem there. I want to say that a particular string, like some string, I do not know the length of it, that a particular string like ABC is belonging to a particular grammar. Okay, so it can be any grammar. Okay, so now how do I design an algorithm? So I come to this algorithm that what you do in 1 step, derive all the terminals that are you obtaining in 1 step and that are of 1 length. Okay, so that is the particularly algorithm, that is a particular algorithm that is I'm able to define itself in 2 steps. Take out all those terminals that have a 2 length. In the similar way, in 3 steps you take all the terminals that have 3 length. Okay, so if you go by this, all the strings will be parsed easily, and you will get to know after, because at 4 steps you will get a 4 length string. Okay, so I know that my particular string is of 3 length, and at 4 step I will got 4 length string. It means that if I am not able to get my particular string at this step, it means that I will not able to get at 4, 5 or 6 steps. So that is why I'm stopping here, that if in 3 steps my algorithm is producing a 3 length string, in that 3 length string, if the asked string is not present there, I can directly say that this particular string is not present in the grammar. Okay, so that is the problem here. So that is that was the problem. For that one, I designed the algorithm, that this algorithm is seems good. If I follow this algorithm, I will get all the 3 length string in 3 steps, and if it is not present there, I can directly say it is not present. But what happens, what is the problem there, that if you are also standing on the 4 step, there is a epsilon production. So if by substituting the epsilon production, the length of the string can also be decreased. So that is the problem. I do not want a null production. But why I do not want a unit production? If you're seeing what unit production is doing, it is increasing the length of the steps. Okay, so suppose I am searching for a 1 length string. Okay, so in 1 step I have to get a 1 length string. In 1 step I want to get a 1 length string. But what is happening here, if you're seeing this particular production, it is tending A tends to B and B tends to C, C tends to D, and D tends to E. Exactly, it should be A tends to A, and it should be included in only 1 step. But due to this unit production, if you're seeing A tends to B and B tends to C and C tends to D, and in the end D is tending to A, it is exactly the same thing as saying A tends to a small a. But due to this unit production, now the thing that should be completed in only one step, it is getting completed in 1, 2, 3, 3 steps. Okay, so by using three substitution, I will get a length of only one length, and it will be placed at 3 length string. Okay, so here it will be a single a. So that I do not want. I only want those that has 3 length and that is concluded in only 3 steps. Okay, so that is the algorithm. So if I also do not want the unit of production because they are unnecessarily increasing the steps. I want the steps to be as minimal as possible. So that is the two things. That is why I do not want null production in context free grammar, as well as I do not want a unit of production in context free grammar. If I eliminate these two things, I will be able to perform this algorithm. Okay, so I can answer this question that a particular string belonging to a particular grammar. Okay, so you understand, or you have any doubt? Okay. So now the topic is to how can we eliminate these epsilon production as well as this unit production. Okay, so these are the removal procedures. So just copy this one. So it is very easy to understand those first of all. So the algorithm is simple to remove add production. I will tell you about it. It's very simple procedure. Okay, so now I take example and I eliminate this one. Okay, so suppose this is an example. S tends to A, S, B, and then there is a B, and then A tends to epsilon. Okay, so now you can the first step is to find the production, null production. Okay, so find the null production. You just directly you can directly delete that null production. Okay, so now I find the null production, that is my A tends to epsilon is my null production. Okay, so now what will happen? The second step is to find first step. Now you can delete this. Okay, so the second step is to eliminate null production. So what is the production? A tends to epsilon. So eliminate A tends to epsilon. Now it will become the whole expression will become ASB AAB. Okay, so this production is deleted. That is your null production. Now what happens in there? Because A is tending towards some epsilon here, so I also need to. Okay, so why is this coming here? Okay, so okay. So now after eliminating the production, now because in the previous one the A is also containing in the production rule, so I have to maintain that after deleting it, it should signify its rules. Okay, so before deleting it, after deleting it, should not the production rules do not get changed. So what you see now, it is in this production that A is tending to a epsilon. Okay, so this A is tending to epsilon. Just try to embed the value of A in this one, because we are deleting the null production and that production has containing the rules of variable A. So if you are deleting the variable A, so because if you delete the variable A, so for variable A, so there should also be a production, but because by eliminating this one, this is I will not be able to always finish the tree. If you're seeing A, S, B, so you will never be able to finish the tree. So for S, it is also tending to A, B. Okay, so you will know this is A, there are number of A's and number of B's, but this is not becoming a terminal symbol here. So you will always stuck here. So how to rectify this one? So just put the value of A in this A. So now now the complete production will be S tends to ASB. Now what is the value of this A that we have deleted? It was epsilon. So it will become, by putting the value of this one to epsilon here, the production will become as tends to ASB then AB. Okay, so that is how you eliminate the null production without affecting anything. So the production rule that is stating before is stating the same thing now, but before. Okay, so keep that in mind that by eliminating the null production, the rules should not change. Okay, so it before eliminating it, it was producing the number of A's and number of B's to be equal. If you're saying the number of A's and number of B's to be equal, after eliminating the null production, it is again doing the same thing. Okay, so it is saying the same grammar A raised to power n, B raised to power n, where n is greater than or equal to 1. In a similar way, this is the same thing. Okay, now I hope you understand this one. And if you understand this one, there is a try to do this question, the second one. S tends to AB and A tends to AA epsilon, and then B tends to B, and then there is epsilon. Okay, so just find that the variables that are nullable. Okay, so if you're saying A tends to null and B tends to null, these are your nullable variable. Okay, so so there is also one thing in this question. Now follow the same steps again. I want to tell you one thing in this question, that is not this is an exceptional question, so keep that in mind. That is why I have included this. There is a little bit of exception in here because I want to eliminate the null production. Now what is the first rule? So identify that which particular variables are containing the null production. So if you're seeing in the first one, we find the null production. So what is the null production here? A tends to alpha is the null production here, as well as B tends to alpha is the null production here. So you know your nullable variable, I can call it a nullable variable. So my nullable variable or a nullable non-terminal is my A as well as my B. Okay, so now if you are seeing in this particular production, I cannot eliminate epsilon from this production. Okay, so just if you see, try it now. What is the procedure here? Second one. So you just take the value of A and B because we will try to delete this production. It can also be written like this: S tends to AB, and then there is a, then you can call it A, and then there is a production A tends to E, and there is a production B tends to B, and then there is a production B tends to small a. So this will always be eliminated. Now by eliminating it, there will be effect, so that we have to maintain the effect. Okay, so what effect? So starting, because I have eliminated this A, so in the place of A, in this place of A, I have to put the epsilon in this one. In place of B, I have to put the epsilon in this one. Okay, so if you're seeing, now start with the symbol S. Now S tends to, now in one time put epsilon here. Now it will first of all just write the production as it is, S tends to AB. Now put epsilon in A. First time put epsilon in A. Now it will become a B. Now put epsilon in B. Input epsilon in B, and it will become A. So now you have to put epsilon in both, because this is a starting production. You have to put epsilon in both also, so it will become your epsilon. Okay, so if in the static symbol there is a epsilon, you cannot eliminate that one. So it cannot be eliminated. If you are saying that as tends to, it's also visible in this one, as tends to A and B, and A is epsilon and A is epsilon. So it directly means that epsilon is present in the production. So it means in the start symbol, it is how are you reaching towards this one? By taking the help of the start symbols. Okay, so by looking, so it means that you can directly, the epsilon is present in the language, so you cannot eliminate this one. Okay, so keep that in mind. For that one, you have to include a epsilon in the starting symbol. Okay, so you cannot eliminate in this case. Now for A, now again follow the same step. So for first the production you write as it is. Now you have eliminated this A. Now for this A, put a epsilon in this one. So I put a epsilon in this one. It will become A followed by a. And for this one, I again put a epsilon. So it will again produce A followed by a. Now I have to put epsilon in both one. It will get me a single A. Okay. So now this production is eliminated. And now for this production, this follow B. Then just write the production as it is first of all. Then write the epsilon in this B. Now it will become a BB. Now write the epsilon in this one. It will also become BB, but it is also already included. Don't worry about that. So write the epsilon in both. So epsilon, it will become a B. Okay. So now in this case, you are not able to get rid of the epsilon. Okay. So you are only able to get rid of the epsilon that is present inside another variables. But if starting symbol is leading to, if the starting symbol is leading to epsilon, so you cannot, it cannot be eliminated. So that is why I have to include a epsilon in starting symbol. Okay. Keep in mind that if in two variables by putting epsilon, I'm only talking about the starting symbol. I'm only talking about the starting symbol. Suppose if it is written like this, suppose this is AB and then A, and in another production A tends to AB. Now in this particular symbol, if you are seeing, it's also, I can say that A is tending to A and B is tending to epsilon and B is tending to epsilon. Okay. So now in this case, if you are seeing that you have to eliminate this productions. Now put your epsilon in this one. It will become BA. Put your epsilon in B1. You will become AA, and then put in both one. It will become a single A. Okay. Now this C, just see. Now we will put epsilon here. It will become a B. Now put a epsilon here, it will become a. Now you have to put a epsilon both. So keep in mind, you will put both epsilon. Now it is producing a epsilon, but you will not include that one. So only include, that is the rule here. Only include the epsilon if it is present in the starting symbol. If it is produced in the starting symbol, only then I will include the epsilon in the production. Okay. So if it is in another symbol other than starting symbol, if it is producing epsilon, you do not need to write it. Okay. So that is the rule. Keep that in mind. That is why I've included this question. There is an exception in that question. If the epsilon is producing at a later production, there is no need to write it. Okay. Okay. So now for third question, I will give you a question. You should try it at home. Just note this question. As tends to A, B, A, C. C is a capital one. This is a capital C. A tends to BC. Now B tends to a B epsilon, and C tends to D epsilon, and D tends to a small d. If you're seeing now in this production, if you're seeing B, you can put epsilon, it will produce epsilon, but because this is not a starting production, there is no need to include the epsilon here. So that is the keep that in mind, that this is the concept here. Okay. So thank you for listening, and you can move on to the next lecture. If you have any doubt, you can ask me.